was also supposed to co-host this, to kind of update the community on what's happening with Jhamal Gonsalves and how we can, better serve them at this time and how we can better stand up and advocate for Jhamal and Mark. We had a plan to march, but obviously the turnout is a little low, so we'll keep it here and do like a public speak out. Our first speaker is going to be Indira from the Party for Socialism and Liberation. So Indira.
Can I hold this?
Yeah, we'll just line it up.
Oh, slide it. Peace, everyone. So my name is Indira, and I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. So just in June, Rhode Island police organizations and their leaders were claiming that they were in solidarity with George Floyd and that they condemned the murder of him. The Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association just passed this 20 for 2020 campaign that claimed that they were going to combat racism. The executive director, Cindy Wardwell, said that systemic racism exists in society and in law enforcement, and that, like a cancer, it grows if unchecked. Well, we're here to check that systemic racism. If racism is a cancer, then it can't be allowed to grow as the police budget does year in and year out. If it is a cancer, then we indeed need to cut it out. Cut it out of our schools, our neighborhoods, and from all of society. Defunding the enormous police budget would be the first step if the police really claim that they care about George Floyd and fighting systemic racism. But what I've seen over the last few months and the last few weeks is that you can't negotiate with a cancerous organization like the police. They hit Jhamal and left him in a coma. Then just a couple weeks later, they brutalized Germaine, and then Baptista from Para got fired for releasing the tape. El Rosa and the AG said in 2 weeks that there would be a resolution, but now it's a month after Jhamal and there is no solution. El Rosa is hiding behind from accountability to fire Officer Kyle Enders because of the police union. The union is too strong, and a union's job is supposed to protect employees from their employers. Give them a voice on the job, more power. But what does it mean to give police more power? It means more racism, more brutality. Let's get it straight. Police are not workers, and they have the same interests as the state, as Rosa and Gina.
Yes.
That is why we need to defund Providence Police Department by at least 70%, and that's extended to cutting their labor force.
Yep.
They are projected to get $86 to $88 million next year to brutalize us. And then when we take to the streets, like we did when George Floyd was murdered, when Breonna Taylor's murders weren't indicted, when Officer Kyle Enders of Providence Police Department didn't get charged immediately after mowing down Jhamal, the Providence Police has clearly been on a spree. They have been inciting police riots all over the city. But then we're the ones who get pepper sprayed. We're the ones who get knocked on our heads. We're the ones who get arrested and fined when we protest enough is enough. And like Malcolm X said, the so-called democracy in this country is a hypocrisy. PSL and PROVX, we have a petition going around with the demands of defunding Providence Police Department by 70%, dropping all fines and charges against organizers and protesters from this summer and on, and actually firing and charging Officer Kyle Enders, who's still working, by the way. So if you can, please find myself or someone with a clipboard. If you're more interested in getting involved in our weekly organizing meetings, interested in supporting the petition. And also we'll be hosting a history of police origins in the United States next Saturday. And power to you if you're willing to fight for it.
Thank you, Indira. Real quick, after following that up, obviously she mentioned that Kyle Enders, the officer that hit Jhamal Gonsalves with his cruiser, is still working. Does anyone have an idea why? Does anyone know why he's still working? Anyone can shout that out? Leobor. So, making sure that we understand what we're actually organizing for and what we're protesting. Like, one of our demands is to fire and charge the officer. But it's like, what are the systems in place that keep that officer working in the first place? You know, the fact that he's still working after vehicular manslaughter is a problem. The fact that he's still in our community, still serving us and being paid for that is an issue. And knowing what keeps that in place, knowing what actually keeps these white supremacists, these racist cops, you know, giving them the power to actually receive our resources and actually stay in positions of power, understanding that is the first step that we take in taking those systems apart. So really wanted to echo that from what Indira was saying. Our next speaker is going to be Germaine Bruce himself. He's going to come and let us know exactly how he feels about his experience. So Germaine, please come on up.
Hello. Yeah, I really can't talk about the situation, but I can really tell you how I feel, and I can explain it in a way of people basically say, you're okay, it happened like a week ago, it happened like a couple of days ago, but they don't really see how I changed and how I move now. I don't, like, once again, I don't feel the same, I don't think the same, I don't breathe the same, I don't look at cops the same no more. I want more justice than I can even imagine for me, for other people, so they don't go through this and I don't go through this again, and my daughter or my family don't go through this, because it's easy to see, but when you go through it, it's not the same. It's like, it hurts you more, because if you really went through it, you're really struggling now in a way to like stay above water, but you really can't. But then you got all the support helping you like wake up every day. My daughter making me wake up every day. The love I'm getting every day, the motivation, the people around me is like helping me. I'm not breaking down. They're just like bringing me up more than what I should be. Because I could have drowned it in every way. I could have just stayed in the house in a ball. Didn't like got depressed, but I'm out here. I'm trying to help the cause, everybody, and do as much as possible with all the negativity and make it into a positive thing. So I don't really struggle, and I can help people, and I think that would help me more and bring me up to where I want to go. And I really thank everybody.
Thank you, Germaine, for that. Our next speaker is going to be Nika from Providence DSA.
Hey everybody, thanks for being out here today. In some ways I feel like, you know, I'm thankful for everyone who's out here. I'm also frustrated because we keep having to be out here because things aren't changing, because the police in Providence are still brutalizing people, while, you know, there are some people who think that like this isn't a problem in Providence, this isn't a problem in Rhode Island. But the reality is that our carceral systems, from policing to prisons to detention centers like the Wyatt, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, are all corrupt. The whole damn system is guilty as hell, and the whole damn system exists to oppress Black, brown, indigenous people of color, working class people, immigrant people. And I don't know about y'all, but I want to live in a world where that stops. I want to live in a world where people feel safe walking down the street, where someone like Germaine, where someone like me can feel safe walking down the street, knowing that the police in Providence aren't going to brutalize me either for trying to start a friend's car or for protesting evictions, which is something that I was arrested for this summer. You know, a big thing, so like I also want to shout out like such as it handing around stuff about some political education that PSL is doing, which like is so important. I think one of the most important things we all can be doing right now is educating ourselves and trying to educate others. If you also want to talk with me, DSA and Sunrise and Providence Haven and some other organizations are also actually canvassing the city of Providence and talking to people about how they feel about the police in Providence, about how they feel about defunding, and where they would like to see money go in their communities otherwise. Because right now we have almost $90 million going to the police. $90 million going to the police in Providence, when there are people who don't have clothes right now for their children. I'm a teacher, I teach a 2nd grade, and right now a lot of my work is not just teaching, it's figuring out how I can get food for families over the winter. How can I get you clothes? When that is happening, when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we are spending $90 million on the police, we have to really question the morals of our city. Who are we meant to protect? Where should our money, like this money comes from us. Where should this money go? And I want to fight with you and with the city to figure out how we can make sure that money stops going to the police and starts going to our communities, to people who need it, to people who have been taken advantage of by these systems for generations, to people who have been oppressed by these systems for generations. I'm also going to take a moment to talk right now as well about the situation that's happening at the Wyatt Detention Center. If you don't know about the Wyatt Detention Center, it's a detention center and ICE detention center that's in Central Falls, Rhode Island. It was, I believe, the first publicly owned, privately operated prison in the United States, which leads to like a whole host of problems in the way that that prison is run. And in 2008, actually, one of the ICE detainees was killed ultimately due to medical neglect. For years, they didn't continue their contract with ICE, but recently they re-upped it, so now there are folks there who are being detained for their only crime for trying to come to a country for safety. So I'm going to read a little bit about what the situation in there has been like since COVID. On April 4th, 2020, 60 people detained by ICE at the Wyatt launched a hunger strike to demand safer conditions and their release amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The Wyatt staff responded by retaliating against the hunger strikers, cutting off phone access and placing people in isolation. On April 21st, the first case of COVID-19 in the Wyatt was reported. As of October 28th, 18% of the population held hostage at the Wyatt Detention Center have COVID-19. This is a public health crisis. Warden Daniel Martin did not tell ICE detainees about the COVID outbreak at Wyatt until October 21st, although he knew about it well before that time. Warden Martin has not been tracking COVID-19 cases in Rhode Island and was unaware of the spike in cases. He did not require his guards to wear masks. His lack of leadership has put hundreds of people at risk and further proves the inhumanity of this system and this detention center. Our systems are not working. That system is not working. I don't even want to say it's ours because it's not ours. We don't want it. And people should not be dying because of immigration status. But right now, being in a prison is a death sentence. Being a protester, somebody who protests in a prison. Recently, Jonah Pierre was in jail for 3 weeks on trumped up charges for something that he said at a protest. And that could have been a death sentence. So, as I said before, please keep educating yourself. Make sure you make it to that PSL political ed event that's happening. Take care of the people in your community because, right now, the police aren't going to do it. And free them all.
So whether or not they plan to, people picnicking have
So following what Nika was saying,
started listening.
There was a post from Vox.com about how 80% of the people who have died of COVID-19 in a Texas county jail, in Texas county jails, were never even convicted of a crime. And I just want to highlight that these are people who are awaiting to prove their innocence. And even if they are guilty, and I hear a lot of talk about this, being guilty does not give the police a right to kill you. It doesn't give them a right to brutalize you. Saying that people who are stealing or looting from a government that has been stealing and looting from them for generations, it's wrong. It's not their decision to make. The police saying that we welcome peaceful protests. Of course, peaceful protests do not dismantle the state or the power that the state has and uses against us. and condemning rioters and, you know, arresting them. Like, Jonas Pierre being arrested is peak white supremacy. It's them standing up with their right-wing militia, John DePetro, and it's, you know, sending a message that anyone who dares to go against them in any way, shape, or form, they're going to come after us. And Jonas wasn't even given a shot to prove that he was innocent. He was guilty until, and he still hasn't been able to prove himself innocent. He was just guilty because he's a black man daring to speak up against the system in America that doesn't serve any of us. And while I'm standing here at this crowd, it's like we can all tell these aren't the same crowds over these last few months that have been, you know, out here in Providence. Like the protest in June where they had the biggest one, I believe, 10,000 people at a protest. There hasn't been another like it. And it really stresses me out because Black Lives Mattering is not a trend, it's not a moment, it's a movement. And it has to be one that is sustainable. And leaving it up to the same organizers, leaving it up to the same people, it's not gonna help us. Like, this should be all of our mass work. And we should want a better future because we deserve that. We've all been disenfranchised by this government, Black, Indigenous people of color more, obviously. But it's like, when are we gonna actually take a stand against that? These politicians, they live freely and safely in our communities and feel like we have to respect their boundaries, but they don't listen to us. How can you represent and speak up for people you don't listen to? How do you know what we want if you're not talking to us? You know, so I really urge us to all take up this mass work, to make this your mission. Find time to come to these events. Find time to listen to the people in your community. Like, I don't know if it's been too obvious, but every single person who came up to this microphone just in this short time has been brutalized by Providence Police Department just this year. That's a problem. And we shouldn't be the ones having to raise awareness of our brutalization when it's been happening for generations and people that look like us are being killed. We need our allies, we need our numbers, we need our people power. And we need to show them that we're serious and that we'll mobilize and that we're not gonna back down, because they don't back down and they have the resources to keep themselves afloat. So we need mutual aid, we need support, we need community, you know, action to actually even out the playing field, to show them that we're actually contenders and that a better future is possible because we're all actively getting up and fighting for it. So I really appreciate you guys coming out. We're gonna switch over to a open mic, so if anyone would like to come and bless the mic, speak, talk your shit, come let us know how you feel.
Hello, thank you all for coming. I just wanted to speak briefly about what has gone on with PARA over the past few weeks. Recently, the executive director, or former executive director of PARA, Mr. Baptista, released a video of Sergeant Hanley brutalizing a black man on a traffic stop. He released that video and was punished for it because that board, the PARA board, was told not to release that video by the police. So this confuses me. Well, honestly, it doesn't confuse me, it doesn't surprise me, it just disappoints me because the PARA board is a board that their job is to oversee the Providence Police and to protect the people. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to keep us safe. They're supposed to hold the police accountable. And I don't understand how a board whose job is to do that can also take orders from the police and also take direction from the police and do what they tell them. That doesn't make any sense. That board has failed its purpose if that's the move of action, if that's what they're going to do. Mr. Baptista was fired. He was fired as the executive director in a meeting. And this meeting was public, by the way. Only 2 other members on that board voted to keep him on there, and the rest of them 6 voted for his termination. That board does not fight for us, and it has become so clear in this decision to terminate Mr. Baptista that they do not serve us. They do not protect us. Because what Mr. Baptista did was for us. He did that to protect the young black men in this city that have been brutalized by police. He did that to show that this is an issue that is happening in this city, that is still prevalent, that is very much so happening in this city, and yet he was terminated for it. He was terminated, he was silenced. And I think that that is incredibly disheartening. That is all.
Hi everyone. I'm here. I traveled all the way here from New Bedford because these are the things that we do need to come out for. These are the times people are socially distanced. It's okay to come out and show your support because you can't be sorry and you can't feel guilty if you're not doing everything in your power to fix it. Nothing will change if we don't. We're so used to being slaves to a system that makes us feel like work is more important than protest, that makes us feel like work is more important than action, than people's lives. It's not. Because at the end of the day, that job that you are going to is part of the bigger system. It's part of a model of capitalism that models slavery. You are slaves to this country. You are slaves to your 9 to 5, to these jobs that we couldn't survive without, that we're barely surviving with. So I just want to start off saying that first and foremost, because the numbers do get smaller. The people who had voices before to repost, to take a protest pic, that was all fun and games before. But when's the last time you've seen George Floyd on your TL? When's the last time you've heard about Breonna Taylor? When's the last time you've heard about any of the black people who have been dying? We keep saying Black Lives Matter is not a trend, but we keep treating it like a trend. It's more than a hashtag, it's more than hashtag Black Lives Matter, it's bigger than that. The problem isn't police brutality. The problem isn't institutionalized racism. The problem is genocide. Black people have been facing a genocide since they took us on those slave ships, first and foremost. It never changed. The goal was always the same, to keep killing us, to keep torturing us, to keep them at power. Police brutality is genocide. All of these murders by the police is genocide. Every single black person who has ever been killed in America for the color of their skin is genocide. Black people's highest reasons for cause of death being heart attacks and cancer, that diabetes, high cholesterol, that is no mistake. That is no mistake. When you are given scraps and make collard greens and all that food with all that meat, all the scraps of the animals, that's all they gave us. That's what soul food is. Soul food is making the best out of nothing, but soul food is killing us. That is genocide too. Because when you go to the doctor, you're probably gonna die too. You're probably more likely to die in any sense in America when it comes to black people. And lastly, I would like to talk about a boy named Malcolm Gracia, who was killed by the New Bedford Police Department about 8 years ago. They covered up his murder, they put out lies, and the 5 officers are still working. It was an atrocity. The officer who shot and killed Malcolm was on narcotics for an injury that he wasn't even supposed to be taking medication for when he got back to work. This is still happening. We know that. It's real. But when they're hiding evidence, playing on a false narrative, when these reporters just aren't getting it right, there is no room to stand neutral. There is no room to get the story fair. What's not fair is what's happening. When you're not looking for the facts, that's not fair. We all can't keep walking around thinking that we know what we're talking about, because frankly, I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. There are so many problems that I probably partake in that I don't know what's going on. We all have so much learning and growing to do, and we have to be willing to make the sacrifices. Sacrifice is not going out and reading a book. Sacrifice is going online and just looking something up instead of spending all your time reposting pictures of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. The only way to get through this is education. We need to educate each other. We need to educate ourselves, because the answers are so much bigger than us when you really look down at it. This is very normal. Black people dying is so normal. You should be enraged. You should be disgusted. We all should be. You should be pissed off. You should have trouble talking to your white counterparts because it's uncomfortable. It all is uncomfortable. You can't know the things that are going on in this country and feel any bit of comfortable. Every moment, every step, from getting coffee, from seeing somebody walk down the street, that should be on your mind. It should all be on your mind. You should never stop thinking about it, and the wheel should never stop turning. That's really all I gotta say. Bless all of us, to whatever God, whatever ancestor, deity, whoever you pray to, God bless you, and have a good day. And I hope we all just keep educating ourselves and keep showing up and keep coming out, because this won't change. It won't change. The answer is not police brutality. It's not institutionalized racism. It's genocide. Learn these names. We have to learn more than just Martin Luther King, more than just Rosa Parks. We need to be looking at the great thinkers that came before us, and not just Angela Davis. There are so many great thinkers who have books, who you can just go look up. Start book clubs. Do whatever you can to get the word out. If you feel like you can't organize a protest or come out and speak, there is so much more that you can do just through educating yourself. So bless you all and have a good day.
Hello. I just wanted to say something real quick. Thank you so much for that message, and for everybody who has spoken here today, and for all the organizers. I just wanted to tell you a little story about a few months ago. I was sitting on my couch in my living room, and I hadn't opened Facebook for a few days because I knew something terrible had happened, but I did. And I was sitting on my couch on my phone, and then I saw the video of George Floyd, and I saw his neck. And I closed my eyes, I squeezed them tight, and I felt this sharp pain in my chest. And I felt the tears build up in my throat, and I had to let out a scream. I just felt like the whole world was on top of me, was on top of my neck. And I felt like I couldn't just sit there. So I grabbed like brown paper bags and cardboard, and I wrote messages like Black Lives Matter, and I wrote messages like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and I put them on my porch with tears streaming down my face, crying audibly for everybody to walk by to witness. And then I saw my neighbor Dennis, who I don't really talk to that much, but he put up a fist to me. He's from Haiti. He said, "We have to take a stand," in his Haitian accent. And I'd never talked to him before. And in that moment, I was reminded that, like, even when I feel so low and I feel so powerless, just me doing anything is doing something to spread the message. So just wanted to remind you all that the urge that made you come out here today, and the urge that you got to stick around and listen for as long as you have, that urge and that compassion and that love and that hope and that anger is still there even when you're feeling so low, so tired, when you can't do anything. So just a message to say, we all have this power inside of us that can be unleashed and make this better, brighter future where everybody is safe.
Back. While I do appreciate, people speaking up and out against police brutality, police brutality doesn't exist. Policing is brutality, the whole thing. You can't separate them. I say it all the time, but we have to keep reminding ourselves, police came from slave catchers. They were people that were protecting property over people, profits over people. People like that can never and will never serve Black and Indigenous people of color. So the entire system is about brutality against Black and Indigenous people of color. I want to speak about what's happening in Providence locally. How many of you guys, by show of hands, have heard of the demand to defund the Providence Police Department by 70%? Okay, how many of you know that that demand actually came from myself? So another issue in advocating for ourselves is that a lot of times our white counterparts, we're recreating a space in which oppression lies in our organizing spaces, in which intellectual property is taken from Black and Indigenous people of color, in which their work is co-opted. And while standing up to make a difference is important, how you make that difference is all a bit important as well. Over this summer, while that demand was created in an abolition coalition that no longer exists, the work was still done. And it was co-opted and taken from myself, a Black woman, a Black organizer in Providence, Rhode Island. And I feel like, as much as possible, that needs to be spoken on. Not exactly my particular case, but the fact that, while we're organizing covert racism, anti-Blackness, it shows up in those spaces too. And not calling it out, it actually does more harm than calling it out and having that conversation. I feel like as a Black woman, especially a bisexual Black woman, I'm always uncomfortable in America. And if that means my white counterparts, they need to be uncomfortable too because they're doing anti-Black things or, racist things that they need to be called out on, that's what it means. We can't be afraid to hold each other accountable when we're saying that a better world is possible and we're going to protect us. One of my favorite organizers in Providence, Justice, they had a very beautiful poem at an event of ours earlier this summer. And a line that really stuck with me is, we have to learn how to be safe with each other when the police are not around. I can't tell you how many Black, Indigenous people of color women organizers I've spoken to that have been sexually abused and assaulted in organizing spaces, that have been physically abused in organizing spaces, emotionally abused. And it's like, you can't heal, you can't get better in an environment that you got sick in. And understanding when we're not capable of giving our entire effort to a project is important. There's more than one way to support a protest. There's more than one way to support a racial or social justice movement in your neighborhood. And knowing when to be full throttle and when to step back is important. capitalism, the systems in place, they take from every single one of us, Black, Indigenous people of color mostly. So thinking that we're gonna always have it figured out every day is absolutely ridiculous. We're gonna have our bad days, we're gonna have off days, but listening to your Black, Indigenous people of color organizers, listening when somebody's calling you out, listening even when you are a Black, Indigenous person of color organizer, listening to people who have your best interests, who have your safety at heart, who want to protect and actually serve you, and actually have mutual aid that actually allows us to live in a world where we actually all have what we need. These are people that care. And just because sometimes, some days we do the wrong thing, or, we say things in a way that we don't really mean, it doesn't mean that's the end all be all. It doesn't mean relationships need to end. It doesn't mean organizing stops. It's simply a hurdle. It's simply an obstacle that we need to get over, but we need to get over it together so we can keep coming back together. So I did really want to touch on that. There is an event happening at the State House right now regarding the state budget. How do we feel about taking a march down there? Show hands for yes. So that's not enough. Oh, never mind, it just ended. Just kidding. But yeah, if anyone else wants to speak, please feel free, come up, let us know how you feel. I also want to reiterate, there's PROVX, a grassroots organized, well, I don't call it an organization. I founded it in the early summer. I consider it a political group, an affinity group. We're always looking for members to make the work more sustainable. So if you're interested in that, please find myself. I know Party for Socialism and Liberation is here with the clipboards, taking down numbers and names for Sunday's meeting. And it's a meeting that happens every Sunday. So there's work that's, COVID friendly. Well, I don't like that term. COVID safe. There we go. There's work that's COVID safe that's also happening. So get involved. Like I was saying earlier, really make this your mission. Really make this your work, because it is our work. Like, we're the ones that have to live in this life. We're the ones that have to live in this world. So why not make it something we actually want to live in, right? Thank you. Anyone that wants to come speak, please speak.
Hi, my name is Monique. I'm also from New Bedford. Me and Linnea here came down because of a mutual friend that Germaine that's been going through some police brutality, and we've been working really hard in our city to fight hate with love. And just something that she said here just really resonated with me. And I've been writing lately, so I just based on the sexualizing of young Black women is something that I've been speaking upon very highly lately, just because of my own experiences and the things that I've seen in my city, especially in the school system, and even with our own fellow brothers and sisters. So I'm just gonna read two quick, I guess you could call them spoken words. This one's called Reclaiming Your Temple. Your body is your temple, but what does that really mean? Big butt, small waist, thick thighs, appealing to the eyes. For the men who looked you up and down since a child, for the women who despised you the minute you hit puberty. Just like your body, discomfort comes in all shapes and sizes. Men tell you how perfect you are, but they don't know you. They just like what they see. Women constantly asking you for advice, but they don't understand the consequences of a body like yours. Little do they know that this body has been the root to all my discomfort. This body has caused nothing but self-hate. This body is not my temple, but the image you see when you look at me. As early as age 9, I can remember direct remarks: you're muscular, you have a big butt. To someone like you, these are simple observations, but to the young child whose self-esteem so fragile causes them to go home and cry. At age 11, when puberty struck, the innocence of a child was forced to departure. Walks to school entailed car beeps and loud whistles. To the man, and I say man loosely, that saw a woman and a child following her to school, sticking your tongue out all dirty, shame on you. You caused trauma that will never be forgotten. Those walks to school were constantly filled with the terror of what men would later do to her. To the adult woman who indirectly judged you, you saw a child with a baby and assumed she was fast. Little did you know she was just a child responsible for raising a baby that wasn't hers. You saw your sons constantly harassing her, but still chose to blame her, telling them to stay away rather than teaching them to respect her. A young girl with judgments beyond her control. This body is not my temple, but you wouldn't know. Mama told her, your body makes a sweatsuit look slutty. For a while, she was offended. Later, she realized that was her way of telling her it is not your fault.
As if being a black girl in a predominantly white school wasn't enough, you had to body shame me daily and force my mind to feel unworthy of an education. White girls with no body walking the halls with their ass cheeks out, but my ripped jeans are appalling and inappropriate to you. A young girl with a body like mine, living on her own, so young, lacking the acceptance of self-love. A body like mine caused nothing but mental brutality. And on her journey to reclaiming her body, she did it more damage than good. Older men promising you the love you never had the opportunity to have from your father, showing you the attention you never got from your mother, telling you it's okay, we're both adults, when you're still just a young girl who was forced to grow up before she was ready. Underage drinking, remembering nothing but the words no, no, lights out, but you don't cry rape because he's a friend, and who would leave you anyways. Before she knew it was too late, she had been with too many men who only made her hate her body more than she already did. And to your unborn child whose life lost to a deep depression, a piece of your mother's soul travels with you. She had completely lost all sense of self-worth when she realized how she allowed them to use her mind to get to her body. You see, your mind coexists with your body, making them equally as important. In the process of taking back control, this continuous journey has signs of tremendous growth. Your body is your temple, but what does that really mean? Your temple is what controls your mind, so choose to treat your body right because you strive for happiness, not for an image, because I assure you that that image will be your downfall. As for the question, your body is your temple, what does that really mean? What's on the inside can be stronger than the burdens that bears on the outside when treated with love and respect. When your body is strong, your mind is stronger. When your mind is strong, your temple is beauty. And remember, beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. This one's a lot shorter. It's just really been weighing heavy on my mind. I think a lot of us can all agree that a lot of unconscious feelings that have been suppressed have been coming up. And I'm a big advocate of mental health. I myself suffer through depression and anxiety. And it's not normalized enough in the Black community, even though we suffer from it so much. And I just like to advocate for people like myself to let you know that it's okay. And there are people here for you. So this is the last one I'll do. My hand's pushing you away, screaming, but you keep trying. The defeat doesn't mean yes, but you're inside of me. It's bad enough I didn't want you in the first place, but to top it off, your selfish 1-minute performance left me ripped and bleeding. A month of self-care to rebuild my wounded flesh walls. I think I'm strong enough. When another you comes around, I won't let you win. I mean, I won't let you in. Of all the barriers urging to be broken down, another you feels the need to chisel the one barrier you had formerly broken. You work me up just enough to see faith in you. And just as soon as you let me down, so ashamed I'm blue. A repeated cycle, so how can I keep blaming you? If not you, then me, but how could that be? I know I'm broken, but aren't we all? Is it too much to ask for to catch me when I fall? Walls up, but you get every piece of me. A friend, a lover, whoever you knew me to be. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. Not to be alone, but to never be loved how I love. To never care, to be cared for the way I care. To leave the world not mattering the way a stranger matters to me. Thank you. So those are kind of written, just like I said, I've been a big advocate on mental health and the sexual appropriation of young Black women. So I just want everybody to take a second and let those words seep into you and think about what you say or how you act towards one another when it comes to things like that. Thank you.
Most of our speaker actually. But we're gonna close out with a prayer. Well, a Sada Shakur's prayer, so it's really a chant. Repeat after me, please. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. One more time, it's like a lot more power. I'm gonna follow suit, ready? It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It's our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It's our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming out and speaking up and standing in solidarity. It means the world. Thank you so much. Go home safe, be safe from COVID, and show up Sunday on the organizing meeting online. If you're not connected, please follow PROVX PVD on Instagram and Direct Action PVD on Instagram. And there's PSO for Rhode Island on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you all.
Hi, this is Will James for Uprise RI. This is a protest calling for justice, citing two specific cases of police violence in Rhode Island. The first is Germaine Bruce, who was arrested while helping a friend start their car a few weeks ago. And the other, of course, is Jhamal Gonsalves, who was pursued by police and left with serious injuries. Officers at the scene said that the stop sign hit him. Most people believe that he was hit, and then people at the scene also testified that the police officer hit him. So today, if you were listening, people read some poems, people spoke about the demands they have for the Providence Police Department. They'd like to see it defunded by 70%, and then to have discussions about where that money should go. We really appreciate our Patreon supporters. It allows us to purchase the streaming service and equipment and also pay ourselves sometimes. Thank you so much. This is Will James, Uprise RI. I'm going to sign off.